Hello, I'm Jim Brown, retired professor of European and Asian history. You're seeing examples of the Japanese art of Gyotaku. The Cahaba River Society folks have asked me to put together a little explanation of it for this year's virtual fry down. Gyo is fish and taku is printing or rubbing. So Gyotaku in Japanese has roughly the same cadence as fish printing in English. Let me start with a brief account of how I learned about it almost 50 years ago. My family moved to Birmingham in 1971, and the first few years I was in town, I participated in a volunteer English as a second language program held Monday nights at a downtown church. 3 of my first 4 students were Japanese guys just about my age, mid to late 20s, and 2 of them were real outdoorsmen. A friend and I took them hiking and fishing, and on one of the early fishing trips, one of them went home with about a 1-pound striped bass. And he came back the next week with what I thought was the world's greatest pen and ink drawing of the fish. You could see the scales, the fin ray bones, the structure of the mouth and the gill plates. Just incredible detail. "Oh no," he said, "this is just a fish print, not a painting or a drawing. You paint the fish itself lightly with ink and then press a soft, flexible paper down on the fish to get the print. Then you either wash the ink off or skin the fish and have it for supper. It's not an ancient Japanese art form, only a century or 2 old, more a sport fisherman's way of having your fish and eating it too." So the next time I brought home fish from a fishing trip, I tore up brown paper grocery bags to make the paper to print it on. I painted the fish with my 4-year-old daughter's blue tempera paint and made my first Gyotaku. It was blotchy and crude, but it was recognizable. I later learned that the classic way to do it is with sumi ink, carbon black ink. In Japanese, the character for sumi is the symbol for black over the symbol for earth on hosho paper made from the inner bark of the paper mulberry tree. Sho is the kanji for writing, and ho means something like presentation quality, implying that it's thick. You're starting to see some of this in craft shows in the interior of the U.S., though it's been popular on the coast for longer. But in general, anywhere there are lots of fish and lots of Japanese, you'll find lots of Gyotaku. I went to the big island of Hawaii last summer, and every town seemed to have its own Gyotaku artist. I visited with Takeo Kageyama in Hilo and found him doing prints of 100-pound jacks 5 feet long on big sheets of rice paper the Japanese use for sliding door panels in their traditional homes. As you can see in this selection of Gyotaku examples, you can use a variety of papers, and on the plainer white and cream papers you can add colors to the print to make the fish seem more lifelike. But they all start the same way, taking the basic black ink print directly off the fish. Here's a short video lesson on making your own basic Gyotaku. So here we have one whole fresh brim, and I have washed it off with a hose pipe and I've rubbed it off to get most of the slime off the body before I print it. And you want to make sure that you go in under the gill and kind of get the goop out of the gills and squeeze the anus to make sure it won't squeeze on your paper. So you have a fairly clean fish. Now we want to pin out the spiny fins. There's a spiny dorsal and then a soft dorsal, and then there's the spines on the anal fin and spines on the pectoral fin. So we'll flip the fish over to the side we're not going to print, and then we'll put pins down in. We'll erect the spiny dorsal and stick pins down in beside it to keep it erect. You just go kind of down along the bones of the fins. It holds it erect. Then you do the same with the anal fin. The spiny fins to kind of keep it. I missed that one, but to try to keep it erect. And then the trickiest of the fins is the pectoral fin, because you have to pin it on the side. You're going to actually print. And I'm using pins with a pretty thick head that I can put some pressure on. So let's see if I. Well, that's fair anyway. So now you have the fish ready to paint with sumi ink. This is carbon black ink that the Japanese use. It's just sumi ink, and I'll apply it to the fish in as even a way. Again, you want to spread it out and kind of paint from tail to head to get the ink nicely up under the scales. And you're literally painting the fish with carbon black ink, and I leave the eye open. I don't paint the eye usually. And every different sort of paper you use requires a different thickness of ink. So we'll give this in a time or two. So I've got the ink spread out fairly evenly over the fish. Make sure I got the pectoral fin spread out here, and the pelvic fin as erect as it can be. And so at this point, I'll pick up the fish and put a clean paper towel under the fish for the printing surface. And then I'll take a couple of pins and spread the caudal fin, the tail fin out a little bit. And now it's a matter of taking a piece of your printing paper, and I'm just using Reeves paper here, and you go down on the fish just one time, and you hold it midways, and you sort of massage the bottom and come around the body and try to get the fins, and all the way up to the nose of the fish. And now, moment of truth, you peel the fish off, and what I have is a fair print, but the ink was too heavy here and too heavy here and a little bit light up here. So I'll put this aside, and without putting new ink on the brush, I'll come in and do the fish again. Kind of spread out the ink that's there on too much ink. Get all the fins up around the head, but not the eye. And I would usually put a clean piece of paper down, but it's already got a piece of paper. So I'll go down the second time with the paper. Down one time, hold it midways. Make sure you rub the tail. Get the fins as best you can. You're sort of working blind here. You can't really see. So up around the mouth of the fish. And let's try it again. And this one came out a lot better shape. I've got a little smudge down here where I touched twice, but you can see the lateral line system. You can see the gill. You can see the eye, and that's the basic technique of making the print.